Hello everyone, this is Leah Whitehorse from Leah Astrology with the weekly forecast for March the 13th through to the 19th, 2023. So the first thing I wanted to start with is just a little bit of observation of things that have been coming up in the news. I do like to do this from time to time just to see how what is going on out there in the world is reflective of what is going on as far as the astrology is concerned. So, of course, the recent big news is that Saturn has gone into Pisces. And personally speaking, I'm actually really looking forward to this transit because I feel it has so much amazing potential, both for the idea of manifesting dreams, but also kind of getting real as well, because I think there is quite a lot of disorientation and disillusion and a lot of escapism and also distraction. So it kind of feels like it has the potential for kind of pulling us together and putting things in order and really being able to use this incredible imagination that we have. So what I noticed out there in the world is a rapid succession of articles that just kept popping up on the BBC, on Twitter. First thing I saw was, and these have just been posted, by the way, in the last couple of days since Saturn went into Pisces, we had a big article which was titled, "The Ocean is Littered with 171 trillion plastic pieces." That's a really scary amount of pollution. And obviously that really caught my eye because I was talking about the waters being polluted and diseases that are associated with the water and waterborne disease, but it's actually the pollution itself in this case that's really coming up. Now, also as well, I think it was the same day or the day before that we had the High Seas Treaty that was agreed. Now I think that was the day before Saturn went into Pisces. It was extremely close to it, but it really caught my eye because Saturn can be associated with the rules. And so this High Seas Treaty is basically about making sure we protect the waters of the high seas. And it involves lots of different countries. I haven't got all the notes in front of me here, but it involves lots of different countries. And they are all going to have to pass certain laws to kind of formalize this agreement. So the agreement was made just before Saturn goes into Pisces, but during this time of Saturn in Pisces, everything will be formalized, and that is also a very Saturn word. So yes, we've got the terrible pollution, but at least something somewhere positive is happening to try to resolve some of this situation. Another thing that I saw, now this is a kind of combination of the potential of Pluto in Aquarius combined with Saturn in Pisces. So the headline in this case was "Climate Change, New Idea for Sucking Up CO2 from the Air Shows Promise." So there is this new thing that they have developed, this new technology that has been developed that can take the pollution out of the air, take the CO2 out of the air, and then they put it into the water. They store it safely in the water. So clearly we can see the combination of issues that are relating to the astrological transits there. Pluto in Aquarius can speak of airborne diseases, just as Saturn in Aquarius did. So we're still looking at this idea of the things that the air carries that are toxic, but now we've got a potential for getting rid of that. Lastly, another news story that's come up just in the last 24 hours or so. It's actually after I recorded this weekly forecast, but I really wanted to edit this in because it's speaking of Pluto anaretic in Capricorn. So we're just kind of coming more to where we are right now. And I've been talking a lot about how Pluto anaretic in Capricorn, it's now at this critical point where we are seeing a lot of old establishments being changed or forced to change in some way. And so the story that came up is the BBC. So of course in the UK, the BBC is a national institution. It's like it's synonymous with, particularly with the English, like the old-fashioned BBC broadcasts with their very BBC voices. So what happened is there's a footballer called Gary Lineker. He used to play for England years ago and is now a well-known presenter on Match of the Day, which is a weekly program about football. I don't watch it, but it's been going forever, ever since I was young. So he's very well known and very well liked, and he has a lot of followers on Twitter. And he tweeted, in response to our government are doing this big drive at the moment, which is very anti-refugees, and it's kind of bordering on a very authoritarian kind of viewpoint, and they are just kind of basically sort of distracting us, the public, by this situation with refugees coming across on small boats, landing here and then asking for refugee status. And they are potentially bringing in these very draconian rules to stop this from happening, and have made a really big story out of it. So Gary Lineker tweeted to say that this was basically an echo of 1930s Nazi Germany. He didn't use the word Nazi, I don't think, but it was very much a direct reference to what happened during the war. And for that, the BBC have made him stand down from working on this show, and I think kind of doing anything with them right now. He is utterly unrepentant. And now what's happened is a lot of his colleagues, co-presenters and other people in TV land, they have publicly stated that they are supporting him and basically going against the BBC. The reason for all of this is that the BBC state that they are impartial and that Gary Lineker broke the impartiality rules. But as many of us know, the BBC are very much not impartial, and there has been a lot of cozying up between the BBC head people and head people in government. And so this is why the BBC will trot out certain headlines that are directly in line with what the government say, rather than being actually impartial. So it has blown everything up completely, which I thought was really interesting. So many headlines that really echo Pluto, Anoretic in Capricorn, particularly these ones. The BBC has undermined its own credibility. The BBC could be perceived as being under pressure. Yeah, just a little bit. The Beeb's gone to war. One of the other headlines, I don't have it in front of me right now, but they were talking about a revolt, which I thought was very interesting because it was like a little hint of things to come with Pluto going into Aquarius. So obviously, I understand that this story is not going to mean that much to those of you who are outside of the UK, but because it is such an important, established institution in the UK, and it is so ingrained in our culture, it does feel as though it is very resonant with what is happening right now. And ultimately, a lot of the truths are coming out. So there's a lot of people talking very publicly now about money that's changed hands between these chairmen of the BBC and the government, and who has stood for Parliament for the Tory party. You know, all these kinds of things. There are a lot of truths, which is Pluto, coming out, which could change everything, because at the moment it is law that we have to have a TV license. We have to pay for a TV license. But in the light of all of this, loads of people are cancelling their TV licenses, and it's possible that this could be the catalyst to eventually abolishing the TV license, which many people have been fighting for many, many years. So it's quite a fascinating story in light of the astrology, and I'm going to be very interested to see how this all turns out. And of course I am supporting Gary Lineker. So now we've had a little bit of a news roundup. I'm going to go into what is happening for the week ahead. So the first thing is that on the 13th of March, there are no major aspects happening. The moon will have just skipped into Sagittarius. So this is a sign that is about the search for truth. It's about broadening our horizons. It helps us to see further into the future. And we can get very excited about all the adventures that are possible. Our horizons are getting bigger. We kind of start to feel like there are so many experiences that I want to engage with. I need to go further than I've gone before. And it's really interesting that the moon, whilst it goes through Sagittarius, will of course make all these trines to all these bodies that are over in Aries now. So of course we've just had that triple conjunction between Chiron and Jupiter and Vesta. If you haven't seen it, I've already written a long post about that here on Patreon. It's Patreon only post. So that is still in effect. This triple conjunction is going to be continuing right the way through the week. And the conjunction between Jupiter and Chiron, by the way, will actually last right up until the 25th of April. So we have quite a long time to work with this very powerful energy. So the gifts that we receive from this healing process, yes, it might magnify where there are problems, but at the same time, it gives us this big picture view, especially with the moon there in Sagittarius. We're really getting the big picture, so we can start to see where we have an opportunity for healing and development in our lives. On the 14th of March, we are going to have Mars square to Neptune. So this has already been building up, and we're actually now building up to another triple conjunction, which is going to be the Sun and Mercury and Neptune. They're all over there in Pisces. They're all pretty close now anyway. It's already in effect. So this is an interesting thing. We have all that fiery, energetic, proactive, let's go Aries. And then we have the very quiet, soulful, spiritual Pisces energy, which is interacting with Mars in a way that may mean that we feel a little like, I don't actually know how to proceed. I don't know what to do. I'm not sure if it's worth doing anything. This is the problem when we have Neptune square to Mars, because Neptune dissipates the energy and the vigor and the will of Mars, like our willpower. If you're trying to rely on willpower to change anything anyway, and I know this, my willpower is like 0, it just doesn't really work. And we might really feel like we're getting that message with Neptune square to Mars, Mars square to Neptune. We're really feeling like this is not carrying me through. I've got this vision, something that I really want to realize, especially with Saturn now in Pisces, but I feel torn. Mars in Gemini, Mars still there in Gemini. I feel torn about which way to go or which bit of information to act on, which decision to make. Oh, I throw my hands up in the air and I can't be bothered. I'm just going to go and watch TV and order a pizza. You know, it kind of feels a bit like that. Or the other way we could look at this, the high vibe of this, Mars square to Neptune. Again, the spiritual warrior kicks into gear. This is the character. I'm getting a very vivid image of Joan of Arc that's just being dumped into my head by spirit as I'm talking. So we'll go with that. Joan of Arc. Look what she achieved with the power of belief. She believed fervently that she had a direct connection with God, and she acted on that. She went against everything against all the rules to be able to take action. She went against everything that seemed rational to follow and act on this intuition, this powerful message. And that is the main issue here, to be able to listen to that soul song, to that quietness within, the quiet voice, Mercury, that in Pisces, to listen to that quiet voice and then to act on it. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do everything, because that can be another way that Mars square to Neptune can manifest, that we feel a bit like if we only take one action, it's not enough. Whatever I do, it's not enough. Mars square to Neptune, because there's so much Neptune. Neptune has no boundaries, no borders. It's like everything. It's the cosmos. And so, of course, when we have all these wonderful imaginative ideas about how to change our own lives or how to change the world out there, or a bit of both, that's thrilling, but immediately bewildering. There's just too much. And so with all this activity and me seeing this very strong image of Joan of Arc, it makes me feel like we just have to think about one thing at a time, one step at a time. Intuition says, do this today, and we take that step. And then the following day, the intuition says, let's do this today. And maybe we can't see how the two things connect. That's the image of Pisces now that's coming to mind. The thread that runs between the two fishes, one swimming either way. Sometimes the one at the top can't see where the other one is going. And that can be incredibly confusing. So this is where we have to trust ourselves. Trust that inner voice, that little spark that says you do know what to do. Just follow the guidance. But it is hard sometimes not to fight against that, which is what Mars is doing here. Because Mars likes to have really clear orders and a really clear goal. But maybe we're not going to get that right now, and we have to find acceptance for that whilst this triple conjunction square to Mars, because they're all going to square Mars, is in play. Now, all this message, everything that I have just been talking about, is now going to be magnified again on the 15th of March, because we then have the last quarter moon, so the last turn of the lunar cycle before we go to the next new moon. So the reason that the story is amplified is that the moon there in Sagittarius opposes Mars in Gemini, and it squares the sun, just as the sun also joins with Neptune. This creates a T-square pattern. I've marked it here on the chart so you can see, with everything pointing to the sun conjunct Neptune. So that immediately brings a lot of tension in, but at the same time, it tells us what we need to do. So the tension is, we've got the moon who is needing the adventure, needing the truth, needing to go out there into the world and explore and have fun and, be free of all the shackles. And then Mars in Gemini is really confused and frustrated because he doesn't know which way to go. And maybe we're feeling a little bit angry. We're kind of getting some anger coming through, or just the frustration coming through. We're feeling a bit held back, like we're not going far enough or fast enough. And then the sun's conjunction to Neptune says we need to trust, let go of the ego, because when we get frustrated and angry, for the most part, obviously there are times in life when we have the kind of anger that is necessary to set boundaries, to make sure that we're not putting up with bad behavior and that kind of thing, or anything dangerous. So anger is not a bad emotion, but it needs to be used in a careful way. So a lot of the time, though, the feelings that come up, the frustrations, the annoyances, they're just triggers. The moon speaks of habits and the inner child. So we're being triggered so much right now. And when we feel triggered, then we tend to just react. And very often it's kind of from a place of ego about what we think things should be like. So the sun and Neptune is kind of inviting us and pushing us to let go, to relax for a start. Chill out, says the universe. Chill out. Take it slow. Let go. Accept what's happening right in this moment. Make peace with what is happening. Make peace with yourself, for goodness sake. Make peace with yourself. And then you could start to listen. Then you can get in touch with that part of you that has all this wisdom, this cosmic wisdom, and realize that you are so much more than you think you are. And there are so many other ways of expressing yourself. This is Neptune again, having no limits. You are unlimited. There are unlimited ways to resolve every problem that you have in your life. There are unlimited ways of seeing things. And this is a real sense of connecting with your deity or your higher self, whichever, works for you. But it is like I would say like a God moment, or goddess moment in my case. It kind of really feels like that because Neptune is seated on the throne of the sun. This conjunction, this is powerful. It's really powerful. The sun is illuminating Neptune. It's illuminating the soul. And Neptune is spiritualizing our identity, our sense of self. So getting in touch with the soul self is a way to dissolve all this frustration and fighting and the needing for everything to happen now. Chill out, says the universe. Sun conjunct Neptune. We then have Mercury conjunct Neptune. So again, it just goes on and on, the same kind of story. Mercury, Neptune, this is a symbol of prayer. This is meditation. This is accessing the collective pool of the unconscious. This is allowing your dreams to speak to you. This is doodling or painting without giving thought to what you're actually creating. It's allowing your hands to be empty so that you just simply receive. It is clearing the mind, calming the mind, relaxing the mind. It is having a holy state of mind. Mercury conjunct Neptune. And we need this because the sun is going to form its square to Mars today as well. So the sun square to Mars is pretty much like, the fight of the ego. The universe, we could say Mercury conjunct Neptune and all the Pisces energy. The universe is guiding us. Our spiritual guides, angels, whatever you want to call it, those on the other side that are really rooting for us. They're giving us so much love and encouragement and little hints about what to do, where to go. And then the ego just says, no, I'm going to do it my way. And this is what we're kind of struggling with here. And we can also identify too much with certain opinions whilst Mars is in Gemini, certain teaching, certain schooling that we've experienced in our lives. And we don't want to drop that idea because it feels like it's going to change who we are. Now also feeding into this story as well and maybe showing us why we are struggling to drop some of these ideas or teachings or thoughts is that we have Venus square to Pluto today as well. So lots of tension in this chart, lots of tension in the cosmic atmosphere because of course Pluto, anoretic, you already know this story. And we've got Venus now anoretic as well in Aries. Now, Venus in Aries, her heart is inspired by, fired up, burning for the things that she's attracted to. It's all so exciting. She wants to chase after the things that she loves. And now it feels incredibly urgent because she's in Aries and Pluto's going, you got to do it now. You got to do it now because everything's going to change. You got to do it now. It's all going to fall apart. Catastrophe. You got to do it now. And so clearly we can see that there is this feeling that if I don't do this, whatever this is, now, then I'm not going to get what I want. I'm going to lose this opportunity for something that's really golden in my life, something that's beautiful, something that's precious. Or maybe I'm just worried that I'm just going to lose what I have and I want to keep it. It's mine, Aries. So we have this very, very powerful push that's going on inside of us, a struggle that's going on inside of us. But if we take it to the high side, Pluto is really saying to Venus, what you think of as valuable right now, maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe that needs to change. Maybe it's disempowering you. Perhaps a certain value that you hold is taking your energy, undermining you. And it could also be a very powerful Pluto expression of you don't love yourself enough to really know what is good for you, or you don't love yourself enough to allow yourself to go after what is good for you. So either way we could look at that. But Pluto square to Venus has this wonderful potential to change in a almost like in a blink of an eye, to change what we believe that we actually want and what we actually need. And then Venus goes into her own sign of Taurus, also on the 16th. So this immediately makes me feel like we need to have some caution around this date, because there's so much happening that maybe we just need to give it a minute for Venus to get into Taurus. And then we will start to ground some of this energy for a start and reconnect with what is important. Venus going into Taurus is like, slow down, smell the flowers, eat some cake. It's just like connect with the body again. Connect with the body, connect with the ground. Start to remember, slow down and remember what is truly important here. There is no rush. I know we still have all that Aries stuff going on, but Venus going into Taurus will help to just calm the heart so that the heart isn't like racing, which it is on that 29th degree of Aries, especially with scary Pluto there. So Venus going into Taurus, I think, will really help to calm a lot of this energy that's happening. And also, generally speaking, of course, when Venus changes signs, then what we desire, what we're attracted to, tends to change. So now the focus is on, I want to have some security, a love of security. Now that might mean money, or it might mean emotional security. Either way, we're really wanting to feel much more secure than we have done in the past. And it also means that we're expressing ourselves differently in our relationships as well. This is a much more practical sign. It is a sign that is very loving and very kind, and it's also super creative as well. So this is why I'm saying we start to get a little bit of help, I think, from Venus. And when it comes to relationships, slow is better. Take it slow. So even if you're in a long-term relationship and you've been together for like 100 years and you know each other really, really well, this can be a wonderful time for just slowing things down, truly appreciating one another through small, practical actions, because it is Taurus that is very much about what you do rather than, what you say or what you feel. It's actually showing that you love someone or something. This is how Taurus works. Now, also on this date, it's important to mention that Mars will finally get out of that shadow zone from the previous retrograde. So it is still out of bounds until May the 2nd, but at least there is a little bit of a feeling that we can start to put all that behind us now, all the Mars retrograde stuff. So however that manifested for you, was starting to feel a little bit like, okay, now that's in the past. On the 17th of March, we are going to have Mercury square to Mars though. So it's almost like Mars still insists, I'm going to have the last word here. Mercury square to Mars, this can be a little bit cantankerous, a bit argumentative, whether it's arguing with yourself, which is more likely because Mercury is there in the sign that's associated with the unconscious. So it could be like an unconscious argument with yourself. So you might be dreaming of arguments or, sleep is a little bit disturbed. Or maybe it's just that you're not really sure, again, how to translate your thoughts into action. So there's still some of this going on here. But then we also have the Sun's conjunction to Mercury today as well. So this is the superior conjunction. And at that point, Mercury, like Neptune, is now sat on the throne of the Sun. So we kind of elevate the mind. We really need to be open to the message. Very often the idea is that we're kind of flooding the mind with light. So it's like a revelation. We're getting messages the whole week, really, because of these 3 planets in a triple conjunction here in Pisces. Really is coloured by this. It's coloured by this sense of constant input from spirit, from the unconscious, from deep down within ourselves, from the higher self. There's something coming through here that we need to make room for. Also important to note as well is that Hygeia will be square to the nodes today. So Hygeia is currently on this long journey now through Aquarius, paving the way for Pluto. And as she squares the nodes, she reminds us of how important it is for us to be looking ahead and looking at where we do need to take preventative action to ward off disease. That is her MO. That's her modus operandi. Hygeia in Aquarius is very concerned about the future. She's also concerned with how we are connecting with one another. And maybe she is saying we also need to ensure that we have the right people around us, the healing connections for us. And that's going to be different for everybody, of course. We all have different kinds of people that we're drawn to, different groups that we feel that we need to be part of. So Hygeia in Aquarius squaring the nodes says it's really important now to kind of find your team. Who are your support team? When life is tough, when things are difficult, who do you go to? When a crisis happens, catastrophe happens. So this is the South Node in Scorpio that I'm just riffing off here. But who do you go to? Who's the person or the people that are there no matter what? Who are the friends that you know that you can go to at any time? And also, who are the other people who might not, be so good with catastrophe and disaster, but nonetheless are still good people? And you'd go for a coffee with them and have a chat, and you'd ring them up and find out about their day. And there's different kinds of people that we have, different kinds of positions people have in our networks. And some bonds are really, really strong, and some bonds are strong, but they're not quite so important, but they still matter. So Hygeia, I think, is speaking to all of this, that we need to have these good connections, these healthy connections in our lives, so that we can find this security, North Node, because everything is pushing us towards that North Node in Taurus right now. It's coming towards the end of its journey. And again, it has been pointing us to, we need to know what's important. We need to know what's valuable. We need to value ourselves. We need to simplify things, because it's been too complex. There's been so much about power games and toxicity and, what do I share with another? Simplifying and making it easier on ourselves, because we've been making it really hard on ourselves so far. So making it easier on ourselves, North Node in Taurus, and Hygeia is trying to help with this by going through this kind of cleansing process as far as our friendship groups are concerned, but also in our ideas and our ideals for what we want for the future. Venus is in a better mood today as well, because she is also going to sextile Saturn. So now we're really in this long-term thinking. This is a great aspect for money management, thinking about money in the long term. What am I going to need to fulfill my dreams? What do I need to invest in to fulfill and manifest my dreams? This is the opportunity that Venus sextile to Saturn brings. On the 19th of March, Mercury will then form a sextile to Pluto. So this is great because we're really starting to get some information flow coming through here. And it feels super charged, super powerful, because both these bodies are on the 29th degrees of their respective signs. But it's incredibly insightful. It's a sextile, it's helpful. So we've got some really insightful information coming through, and then Mercury goes into Aries. So this can really speed the mind up. It can also help to clear some of the fog as well. It's a bit like, the sun rising in the morning, burning away the mist of the morning. We kind of start to think in a clearer way. Our speech becomes more direct. Sometimes we can be a little hasty in what we're talking about. And again, there is that suggestion of impulsiveness as well. So we just have to watch those and how we use our language. Mercury in Aries can be a bit sweary as well. I actually have my natal Mercury in Aries, and yes, F-bombs here and there. I don't do it here, of course, on my recordings, but in my daily life, there are some F-bombs with Mercury in Aries. So Mercury in Aries kind of gives us that strength of mind as well. That's the other thing. It's like, I've made my mind up. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to learn this, or I'm going to talk about this. That's it. This is what's happening. So it can feel a lot more direct. One thing we do need to be aware of, though, is that Mercury will oppose Ceres on the 19th of March. So just for the early part of this process of Mercury in Aries, we will need to pay heed to what other people need and to the idea of tending to our relationships with others. We've got to listen, basically. We need to listen to have that balance, because otherwise other people, if we kind of speak up in a way that is more conflicting rather than assertive, then other people could feel like they're not being taken care of and not being cherished, which is the action of Ceres in Libra. So we've got to kind of keep the balance, and it's probably a good thing, although it might be a little bit frustrating sometimes because it's in opposition. There is a kind of sense that actually Ceres is trying to help Mercury out here to ensure that we don't sort of blow our relationships out of the water whilst we're busy telling everybody how it is. Juno also conjoins the North Node today. So again, we've got a lot of focus on the North Node, bearing in mind Hygeia is still square to the nodes. So we've got the push to find our team, and then we also have the instruction that we need to make some kind of commitment. What do you need to agree to fulfill your karmic mission right now at this point in time? What do you need to agree to, or what do you need to bring together in union? Because of course Juno can speak of being a marriage asteroid, so it can be the marriage of people, but it can also be the marriage of parts, bringing things together. So these are the kinds of questions that we can ask with Juno on the North Node. I'm going to turn now to the tarot. And this week I got very clear instruction to use these very specific decks of cards, and that I needed to draw one from each deck. So bearing in mind, I've just been talking about listening to the universe and listening to your intuition. I just followed the instructions. So we have Draco, the Nine of Wands, which is from the Celestial Tarot by Kay Steventon and Brian Clark. And then we also have the Strength card from the Naked Heart Tarot by Gillian G. Wilde. So Draco is a constellation that is in the far north, and it relates to the North Pole, the North Star, and Draco just means dragon. And the most common story that we have about dragons is that they are always kind of protecting something that is precious. We see them curled around their pile of gold. So the dragon is protecting something precious. And it also captures my imagination because the dragon is what we use to describe the north and the south node. So we've got the dragon's tail, the south node, and the dragon's head, which is the north node. And currently the north node is in Taurus, a sign that very much likes a big pile of gold. It's associated with money and wealth. So I'm feeling like this card is kind of talking about all the emphasis on the node with Hygeia squaring, Juno meeting the North Node, and of course Venus will be coming up to meet the North Node soon as well. As soon as she goes into Taurus, she will actually start to make a conjunction with the North Node. So it kind of feels like this card is referencing the things that are precious to us and how fiercely sometimes we defend those things. And again, the question of, is it truly important? Does it really matter? If it really matters, you will find a way to overcome whatever you are struggling with. The Nine of Wands is often a card that does come up to speak of some kind of trial. There's just one more thing to do. We've got the symbols of Sagittarius and the sun here. So it almost looks like the symbol for Sagittarius is aiming towards the sun, like it's firing towards the sun. So we have a sense that this card is speaking of the truth that we are, trying to find. We're trying to touch God in a way. We're trying to really get to the essence of what life is about. And we feel it, we sense it, we kind of feel like we know it. But there's just one more thing that we've got to get through to get to that thing. So now it feels like, the dragon is protecting what it is we want. And we've got to get past it. We've got to find a way around it. We've got to calm it. We've got to stop it from breathing all this fire over us. It's scary. We've got to overcome our fears to get to it. But the Nine of Wands always says that even if there is a trial or something difficult that you need to go through to get what you want, you have the power, you have the ability to do this, you have the strength. Often it is that kind of last burst of strength you need, the kind that helps you to finish a race. Not that I ever run anywhere because I am a Taurus. But if you're trying to finish a race and if you watch someone, they're struggling, they don't seem like they're going to do it. And then suddenly they get that burst of speed, that rush of adrenaline that pushes them over the finish line. This is the Nine of Wands. So you have the energy, even if you think you don't, you will have the energy that you need to complete the task or get through the problem. And then this Strength card from the Naked Heart Tarot just feels like such a perfect complement, because this is the how. How do we get that last push? How do we bring it all together? We have an image here of a griffin. So this is a combination of a lion and an eagle. And we have this feeling with this card that we're about to take off. It kind of feels like he is in that moment where everything is gathering, all that energy is gathering, and he is going to rise up, he is going to ascend. Leo, of course, is associated with the sun. So we've got the sun image on the other card, a lot of fire going on in these cards. The Nine of Wands is a fire card. Remember, we've got all of that Aries energy going on as well. And then the Strength card, this also is related to Leo, another fire sign. So fire is happening here. But with the Strength card, we have to work carefully with this energy. Handling fire. How do you handle fire? You handle it carefully, because otherwise it's going to burn you. You're not going to put your fingers in the flames, even though it looks pretty, because it's going to burn you. So we handle this energy very carefully. And a lot of it is about overcoming the kind of the beast within. So sometimes we can have very instinctual responses to things, and sometimes our instincts can be right. Our animal instincts can be absolutely spot on. But we also have to have the rational mind in place. We have to be able to rationalize to ensure that we're not just kind of leaping to our defense or doing the flight, fright, or freeze response, which is always difficult for me to say, which is why I say it slowly. So this strength card is really encouraging us to be gentle on ourselves. Don't force the point. Handle it carefully. Don't force it. Don't push yourself so hard that you burn out. Kindness and compassion, along with the courage, the confidence, giving yourself the confidence to push through these challenges, to push through these trials. That is the way to do it, rather than kind of flogging yourself to beat this situation down. You don't want to put out your fire. That is the problem. You don't want to put out the fire. You just want to tame the fire. And when you tame the fire, that is when you can truly feel elevated, be elevated above the problems and be able to kind of sail over them, fly over them, get through them. When we tame that inner fire, that is when everything takes off. This concludes my reading for March the 13th through to the 19th, 2023. I hope you found it helpful, and I wish you many blessings on your path.